professionals use science or distribute science or make connections. And so there's been a spirited question and answer period after most of these. And so since none of them took me up on their opportunity to say a few more words, I'm going to turn it over to the audience. And I have a hand waving in the back. Amanda.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm curious if anybody on the panel had some new information or a big takeaway from any of the other panelists, a new idea that you hadn't heard before or a new perspective or what your takeaways are from what other people have said.
Hey, Karen's flipping through. She took notes.
Yeah. So here's some of the things that were interesting to me. So even though Kim and I talk now and again, I want to learn a little bit more about what NRCS is doing for their brush control assessments, because we've been collecting a lot of information about effectiveness of our treatments, and I'd like to see how it compares to what they've been doing. I really feel like one of the things that's getting, we periodically do something about noxious weeds, but I feel like the Ciennegas is a, what do we call it?
Weed management area.
Weed management area, and Linda and I have talked about this, and we're having trouble getting momentum around that, to really figure out how to better do early detection and survey. She does it really well out here, but I do a terrible job up north. I want to learn more about your barfly. Ian, I want to, and I'm not expecting people to answer this right now, I'm just telling you. Ian, I want to know a little bit, as much time as we talk to each other, I still want to learn a little bit more about what you see as the most critical data out of everything we collect that you use. And Bill, let me see what I wrote here. I think it was really beneficial to get another perspective about this emphasis on sustaining grasslands, and that really the primary focus is raising that grass and the commonality of, that's what we're trying to do as the BLM as well, because it supports all those multiple uses. And understanding that the science it's what drives the agencies and the ranchers and lots of other people that are using it. And, I know what the big thing was too. I'm wondering about, we've talked a lot about lamens, but this grazing lamens when it's in seed idea. I'm interested in some science around that.
Did any of the other panelists have any comments? I can see Kim's got something.
Yeah, I actually wrote down some in quotes what Daisy said about we manage for multiple use, and it produces multiple conflicts. I think that's the truth, but the way she stated it.
But part of that, the multiple use, the multiple conflict, the permittees or grazers, Bill and I, usually have the closest, probably isn't the right word, but closest relationship with the agencies. And so part of our job is to remove as much as possible the conflict side of what we do on federal and state lands, and then they can put the energy towards other conflicts. Otherwise, we're not a very good team.
And to follow up what he's saying, I see my job as protecting the Bureau of Land Management. I'm serious, because they have, I sit on a RAC committee, and I'm involved with them in the upper echelon area by virtue of the fact that they probably couldn't find anybody else, or again, turned them down. But the bottom line is the resources are going down, down, down. And yet the community and the public is demanding more and more. And what they're demanding is explanations. And so it's my job and Ina's job to furnish them all the explanations that people are going to ask them, so that they can protect our livelihood. And so that's a big part of my job. And I take it very seriously. Sometimes I do a good job at it, and sometimes I don't, sometimes I don't. But they're my buddies, they're my partner. And they're getting weaker. They've got less resources than they had. And it's been going on for years. It didn't happen last November. It's been going on for years and years and years. And it's a serious situation. And I'm going to make one more comment that's going to piss off a lot of people here. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
No, I'm serious, go ahead.
No, because you're probably right. Well, I will do it now. And it's not meant to make anybody mad, but it's a reality that some of you know and many of you don't. When Karen, and I love Karen, she's going to watch me get monitored next Tuesday. He'll be over there like hawks on my plate. What happens is she says to you all, we're doing brush control. And the hair in the back of my neck goes up and says, you don't do brush control, I do the damn brush control. I don't even get the funding from you. I have to go to the NRCS and pay, and they'll give me $50,000, but I've got to pay $15,000 out of my own pocket to get the brush control. It doesn't come from the Forest Service or there are exceptions.
If you come to biological planning, we'll do it.
But, well, they do it on the Empire because it's the pet of the BLM. And that's right, and I don't have a problem with that because if there's any problem, I say, I have nothing to do, go see Ed and Karen. And you're on the other side of the highway, I know nothing about what happened there. But anyway, what I'm saying is that partnership works because I can afford to do that. I can pay 25%. Because that's usually what the path is. They don't have the money to do it, I have to get their permission, but we both want the same thing. To sustain the Sonora Plains. That's what we both want. And that's what, if I made anybody mad about that, fire me.
Part of that though is it's not done. It's not done because we're big-hearted people and we just want to do it because we feel like doing projects and all that. It's born out of a strict cost-benefit analysis. And some of those you just can't quantitate dollars, but you can quantitate time and different things you can achieve from it. So, I mean, as crass as it sounds, everything driven from us, we want a working ecosystem. Yes, we're raising grass, but it's a business principle that's driving it. And sometimes in groups, don't take this the wrong way, but in groups like this, it's hard to explain that's what drives it. Everyone here wants a healthy ecosystem and a good grassland and a good creek and all the T&E species that we have out there. And that's great, and I'm in 100% support of it. But our framework and how we think through things is slightly different because it's profit driven. It's monetarily driven. And so when we do a project and when we do whether it be brush control or water systems, there's a benefit that derives to everybody in this group, but we're going to make sure that we're deriving a benefit out of it.
And it's not bad. It's not bad to make a profit. It's okay. As long as you don't hurt and destroy things to do that. And, I spend a lot of time explaining that ranching doesn't have to be a non-profit organization. We're trying to see that it doesn't become that. I have families and kids and wives who like going shopping. That's why he gets invited and I never do. Anyway, please don't go tell Whitney. We have to be able to have you understand why we're out there, and we have to do a good job communicating. Linda asked me earlier, what do you think the biggest problem was? And I didn't answer it. And I said, you know what the biggest problem is? Communication. And that's what the biggest problem is since the Romans were around. I mean, we need to have a research ranch that brings people in here, and then hopefully some of you guys will say, I met these couple of cowboys, and you know, they're not bad as everybody thought they were. At least I'd like to think they say that. And so,
Not as bad.
yeah, that's bad. But yes, we do it because we have to make a profit at it. But there's nothing wrong with that, particularly if we can improve it. When I leave that place and they bury me, I can look at every one of you and say it's better than when I took it over. And I paid 25% of that out of my own pocket to get it there. So that's my preach. Can I go home?
So I just have a question about.
Wait a second. We've had several hands up. So Jeff, then you, and then somebody, Anthony? No? Okay. Jeff, you first?
Yeah, about communication, you know, I've been working with these guys, mostly Ian, but a little bit with Bill Bragg and Grant Union out there. But, you know, with this new land ethic that I see coming up in the ranching community, or an emphasis on a good land ethic, I've been able to find win-win situations. We've done it on Los Ciennegas to the point where we have taken stock ponds and split them into twin tanks and used one for wildlife with a pipe rail fence, so that we get the habitat we want for leopard frogs and fish, and all these T&E species, Mexican prairie snakes, and we've been able to cooperate, find win-win, and now we have a meta population that's about 12, 14 habitats that are fully populated with Chiricahua leopard frogs that hop around between them, and they're doing the classic thing they do. And if a population wings out here, then it gets repopulated by the ones that are doing well next door. And so it's really kind of gratifying to get past the old paradigms of cows bad, biologists know what's right. You just got to put them, you know, put our thumb on their head until they relent. And that's how it used to be. And they said, hell no, and never went anywhere. And so it's like this whole paradigm shift is allowed for win-win possibilities. And plus, now that they're collecting scientific information, either on their own or with us, or whatever, we've come to a lot of times an accord and agreement on which way to go. And with the biological planning that we do every year, we share all that information, and we discuss it, and if there's gaps, then we figure out how to fill those gaps, either by observation and collecting some more data, and we move forward sort of with an accord and with some consensus. And it's, man, the switch that I've seen in my career of 27 years is just amazing. And now they're picking up the loose ends for us, which is really gratifying, because we don't have the stewardship capability that the land honestly needs. We just don't.
And Jeff's not doing that, the Chiricahua leopard frog project justice. I mean, I think you guys came to me and said, we want to do this project. And I said, wow, well, I want clean water. So can we put some wells, can we put some pumps in wells and put, you know, rehab these old storage tanks that were on the ranch that hadn't been used in 30 or 40 years? And can we put drinkers in? And then we got to discussing things, and it kind of started to go through. And then we discussed the ponds and whether we should split them or not. And I was an advocate for splitting them, just to show that frogs and cattle are compatible in some ways. So we did that. And through Jeff's EA that he created for that project, we've been able to tear off of it and do other projects that were water projects and mentioned in the EA that I've been able to derive a benefit from. So it's been a win-win. And you know, for us as ranchers, it's easy for us to get behind something when we see positive results. And so when we talked about the Chiricahua leopard frog, and they've used those ponds for other T&E species as well, there was a plan about how they were going to achieve these metapopulations and do things. And to start seeing it happen and be part of it, is really neat, rather than just get your cows up because we're gonna do X, Y, and Z and the hell with it. I mean, it's a lot better to be part of the process and see some of the achievements, although I'm not doing anything directly related to it. You're part of it in a secondary way, and that's fun.
Okay, Elise, did you have a question?
I did, kind of taking us a little bit back to the economic side of things. I wonder if there's, because there's a lot of economic analyses that have been done about birding and, the environmental services kinds of questions, but I wonder if those have included, or should they include, the kind of benefits that you're getting from being on the ground and doing the management and the cattle ranching and all of those pieces. Are they tied into those economic analyses? Because if they're not, is that a question that we should be going after so that it can be multiply the benefits? Because I know that there's a lot of stuff out there right now that's more on the ecological side. And I just wonder if they've been combined or looked at.
I think that what I've seen happen more, and I have to admit I haven't read the latest, so this might be speaking incorrectly, but it seems like we tend to say, well, the ranchers get this economic benefit from having the grass and doing their grazing, and that's, it's really important to keep those ranches operating for that. But I don't think we're doing a very good job of capturing the economic benefit to the American public. Because that's really who these lands belong to, right? From having those ranches out there. I mean, you hear a little bit about, maintaining the range improvements that's come up, but there's so much more interconnectedness, especially having that stewardship. If, I don't have people to go out there and notice things hardly anymore. And Ian and his guys and Bill, they're out there all the time. And that, that's what they do. And so if they can tell us we saw this or we saw that, that's a huge benefit, those eyes on the ground. And I don't think that's ever been captured.
I tried to touch on that, because I know I can follow you, and I kind of knew what he was going to say. And so I was thinking, well, what am I going to say to follow that up? And so I started out with a hunk of salt, a pitcher of water. But I tried to end up with how many thousands of dollars are spent locally, because that generated some more hunting tags, and that generated, he's doing the same thing, and that generated some more animal tags. There's more people that come out here and spend the time out in the area. All of that indirectly, which doesn't get touched on.
Right.
You just don't hear that. We don't even talk about it very often. Has
Right,
a
and that was
major
kind of my
effect
point.
on the community and the health of the community.
Well, and I think that's really my point, is that I think that there is a lot of intangible kind of stuff that's not being captured, that if it is able to be captured through research or a social scientist coming in here and actually articulating that this is really the economic total value that we're bringing to the region, it seems like that would kind of go a long way.
As opposed to a hunk of salt.
Right. As opposed to we're saving, this particular species or increasing populations of, the pronghorn.
I've got two more questions that have come up, you and then me.
Okay, so my question is perhaps for Bill, maybe for Ian. I worked in rangeland in the Mojave, which is quite different. But I think that's how a lot of America sees range, as it's projected in the media via the Bundys. So are you doing anything in your community? You just said, ranchers aren't bad. Are you doing anything within your ranching community to say scientists aren't bad? BLM's not bad? I mean, you mentioned your job is to protect the BLM. How do you do that nationwide?
Oh, do you want to take this?
Go ahead.
I don't think Bill or I have a national voice, so it's hard to get it out nationally. But, every time that I'm asked to speak somewhere, promoting is probably not the right word, but I talk about the relationship that I have with all of the land agencies I deal with, and always talk very highly of it, and will tout and speak highly of the biological planning process and the relationship that I have with BLM, and I wouldn't do that if I didn't believe in it.
Is there resistance at all?
From who?
From anyone, I guess?
Oh, I'm sure there's a bunch of ranchers that think I'm crazy, but, you know, but that's kind of what Jeff was talking about too. The paradigm is starting to change, and if Bill and I can do anything for the cattle industry, it's to promote that communication with the federal agencies and working with them, as opposed to hitting loggerheads all the time, is much more beneficial long-term. We don't spend, ranchers, I think by and large, don't spend enough time developing relationships and trust, and that takes time. And some of it's the rancher's fault, and some of it's the agency's fault, because there's such turnover, right? So you start to develop a relationship with a range con or upper level management, and boom, they're gone. But so far, I've kind of had some continuity with all of the agencies we deal with, and you just have to put in the time to build the relationship and foster the relationship, and then from that builds trust. And once you're able to build the trust on both sides, I'm not just speaking from my side, but hopefully the agencies I deal with trust me as well. Once that trust develops, then the actual day-to-day management of things, from my point of view, is much easier. And Karen can speak for BLM, but I believe it's got to be easier for BLM, because there's not just a bunch, or the Forest Service or state land. There's not just a bunch of, oh my God, what in the world is he doing today, right? What is he going to do next week or next month? Am I going to get a call from Joe Blow Citizen talking about how Ian screwed X, Y, and Z up, right? And if I'm going to screw something up, they generally hear about it from me before they hear about it from the public, so they're able to say, yep, we heard about it, he's acknowledged it, this is what they're going to change. And that's just not a federal agency permittee type of relationship. That's a relationship that makes everything go around, whether it be in business or other things. That's what makes things successful. And we as ranchers, and I'm going to say land agencies as well, need to spend more time doing that than we do worrying about how one or the other is going to screw us over.
Well, he's not joking. When I started out at this in the 60s, they were the enemy. The Forest Service and the BLM were the enemy. That's how my parents got brought up. Because somebody walked in and started putting restrictions. You know, imagine yourself, your yard in Tucson, and somebody walks in and says, you've got to put your garbage out between 5 and 6 in the morning on Tuesday, and you've been putting your garbage out when the garbage can got full. You know, and I mean, that's kind of an overextension. But so we had to adjust to that. And the guys that are surviving are the Ians, because we all understand that it is changing. And the ones that are like my dad, he's out of here. In many ways, but the bottom line of it is that's not the environment we brought up. The environment you got brought up is differently. The environment I got up is I have a person right next to me who doesn't raise cattle that is an ally. They're the ally. 40 years ago they wouldn't have been. That's the difference. But we need your help going outside of this room and explaining to the public what's going on, because there's the misconnect. You know because you're here, and the agency knows because they let it, but half the people walking into Sonoyta and the vineyards don't have the slightest idea about how this plane gets held together. And that's where the communication is bad.
Part of that's because of the news. I mean, we have a fire down here, and you hear about how the vineyards are affected. Anyone see a vineyard burn? I don't. You know, I mean, that last fire burned 2,000 acres on our deed, and all I read about were these vineyards that were so worried, and I'm thinking, that fire was burning north. North. Just all of my grassland, literally our deeded land, and then on the BLM. Yeah. Wondering how they were so adversely affected. But that's all the public hears.
Yeah, and maybe that's what the public wants.
Mm-hmm.
They think they want to hear, and so it's up to us to change their perspective of what they want to hear.
Well, they like a steak with their red wine.
Okay, one more question.
I wanted to ask about coordination of ranching management, information sharing among the landowners, including the agencies, and I wanted to especially bring in coordination with the county, because we don't have a representative right now, but I know you have a lease on the Sands Ranch and county lands, and there's a couple representatives from the county here who work on the ranches. So that was my question. I kind of wondered, is some of the information sharing that happens done by the leases of the land?
I guess that's for me, huh? You know, yes, I think it's going in that direction. Vanessa, who they hired maybe a year ago, 10, 12 months ago, is really good. She's their new range con. Really is smart and personable, and brings a needed point of view, if I can be candid, between the rancher, the permittee, and the Pima County Recreation Group. And with that, I think we're moving quickly in the right direction. There's always information sharing, because we're doing the same monitoring as we do, they're not the same techniques as that are done on the Empire, but there's key areas and there's monitoring of those key areas. There is not the lack of trust that there is with the other agencies. And I don't know what that's born out of. I have suspicions that it's maybe some of the ranches that have been purchased by Pima County and some of the situations that they may have gotten themselves into. And so that puts up a little bit of a wall. But I think that, you know, trust is built over time. And Pima County's new at being a land agency with ranches. And we're new at dealing with Pima County. And so that just has to take time to foster itself. And then I think we're going in the right direction. It's just a little different right now than the other agencies.
All right, well, you know, I hate to cut this short, but we do have other exciting things going on. And so may I have a round of applause for our